Hello, and welcome to the Access Web Express video for Model Prep. My name is Bob Delisle. I'm one of the application engineers here at Access. Today's video will go over the Model Prep function and some of the things that you may not be aware that you can do with that tab. Before I get started here, I wanted to remind you about our YouTube channel. Please subscribe. It is the Access Web Express. And without further ado, let's get going. Here's the first part we're going to take a look at. And again, this is about model prep. So on the top of the screen, you got your model prep tab. There's all the functionality that is included in that. All your install of Mastercam includes the model prep tab. But if I take a look at this plate, we're going to use several functions inside of model prep to modify this plate. The whole idea behind model prep is I can take this solid model that I received either from a customer or from my CAD department, and I can modify it on the fly without involving the CAD group. A lot of times if I needed to make a modification to this and I need to send it back to CAD or send it back to my customer, there's going to be a delay there. I want to keep the machines running. So before I got to work on this part, I was told that these outside pockets here are actually an 1/8 inch deeper than modeled. So instead of either cheating the tool path or having to go contact my CAD department, I've got some options in model prep that I can use. I'm going to select push pull. And when I do, you can see we get these options about how to select geometry, but I can simply come select that face of that pocket, and I can come and select the second face. You see I get this arrow. If I put my mouse on that arrow, I get a scale, and if I left click, I can now drag or push pull that face. And I can push it all the way through if it needed to go, or I can lift it up and eliminate it altogether, or I could turn it into a boss. But in this particular case, I want to go an 1/8 inch deeper. So I simply type in an 1/8 inch, and both of those pockets are now deeper, by an 1/8 of an inch. Really simple, really simple. One of the other features, if I take a look at my part here, I've got these fillets that go all the way around. And I know just because I know this job that the fillets on the end are unnecessary. And do they really matter? No, I could probably leave them there, but it will affect how this pocket is machined. So I just want to get rid of them. And because I have model prep, I can simply select remove fillets, select the fillets that I want to remove. In this case, just the ones on the end. Hit the green check mark. And just like that, they're gone. Now I could have also used the push-pull function, but I wanted to show you this function as well. So now those are gone. And then the other thing, again, because I know this job, and this slides into a existing feature on a mold base, that my CAD guys have given me the radius for clearance for this to slide in. Well, the problem is it's size for size, and that's not always the best condition. And I know it doesn't have to be size for size. So what I'm going to do is I want to take all of these fillets that are 1/4 inch fillets, and I want to make them bigger. How do I do that? Modify fillet. And my options here, because these fillets are the only fillets remaining on my part, I can hold the control key down, select one, and it selects all of the fillets. So now that they're all selected, it recognizes the size of those fillets. I can type in 0.375 and hit enter. And all of my fillets are now big by an 1/8 of an inch. So I have plenty of clearance. It modifies the existing geometry around those fillets. So very quick, easy, down and dirty ability to be able to change my CAD model. So on a day-to-day basis, when I get a plate like this, those changes don't necessarily have to be made. But in the case that they are, I have the ability to come in here and modify the part. One of the other things that happens on a day-to-day basis is I have to put the holes in on this plate. But today, as it worked out, the boring mill was open. They already put the holes in for me. So I don't need to consider these holes. Now, I could just ignore them, but because I have model prep, I can easily get rid of these holes. And I can use the add history function. I can select the add history function. And not only can I create operations, but I can remove features in this function. And I'm going to say remove features, remove the whole operations, all, include the face color, and I'm going to hit the green check mark. I get a notification that a body and 90 holes were removed. Say, okay. And the holes are gone. So now I have a plate that's clean, ready to be machined. I don't have to worry about holes in a face that I might be machining that my cutter might plunge down into. And I didn't have to engage my customer or the CAD group, something I can do on the fly. I do want you to be aware, though, the changes that I made are permanent to this CAD file. If I were to save this right now, the original file is no longer there. The holes that I removed, the fillet changes, the fillet removal are permanent changes. So if you use this function and you need to maintain that original model, make sure you save this as either a copy or a different name. So moving on, I'm gonna bring in another part file here. This one takes a minute or two to open. It's a bigger file. There's a lot of different entities to this part file, so it takes about 30 seconds or so to open. When it does get open, I'm going to use a function called disassemble. If you work with assemblies, if you work with models such as we're going to open, the model that we're opening right now is a model of a race bike, a bicycle. So I can't imagine too many of us build bicycles for a living, but you never know. You could build rocking chairs for a living, and you get the model of your rocking chair. This model is comprised of over 400 solid models that have been put together in an assembly. Well, I can take that solid, and if I look at the levels, you can see I have level 10 or 10,000 here, and there's 468 entities. I want to take these and make it more manageable for me to use. So I could simply say disassemble. It asks me to select the solid body, so I'm going to use my quick mask. I could put a window around this, but for me, the easiest way to do is just come over here and say select all of my solid bodies. And it's going to select the solid bodies, and you can see I get these representation of what it's doing. It's taking this assembly and separating the pieces, and it's laying them out in a logical manner. And the way that it's laying them out currently is the X plus direction with 1 inch in between. I've also got move to levels turned on. So each of these components that it's creating is going to live on its own level, starting at level 1000. I could say move or copy. In this case, I'm going to say copy because I want to keep the original. We're going to hit the green check mark. And again, because there's a lot of data we're dealing with, it takes a second or two to compose, or compose is the right word, I suppose. It's creating copies of everything. So there we go. So now I can turn off the main level. And if I right click and say fit, all 400 plus components are now separated. So I can come down here. Let's just take a look at some of these. So if I have to manufacture some of the parts for this bike, so let's just say this part right here, I now have it isolated. I can go home. I can say analyze entity, select this. When I select this, it tells me what level it's on. It's on level 1189. So knowing that, I can say okay to that. I can turn off all my levels. I can come down to 1189, turn that on. And now I have a part here that I can create a pickup, a WCS. I can call it 1189. And I can start machining on this with all this other information still in my part file. It's a nice way to manage and manipulate large geometric files. Along those same lines, let's take a look at a mold base. This is the same end goal, right? I have to machine all the components for my mold base, and I want to separate them. So I'm going to do the same function. I'm going to go to model prep. I'm going to say disassemble. I'm going to select all of my solids. It disassembles them. In this case, I'm not going to copy. I'm going to move them. It's going to create my levels for me. I am going to go use the same type of spacing. I'm going to hit the green check mark. Obviously, this happens much quicker. So there's all my components. The nice thing about this is you ever build mold bases, these pins are all going to be different lengths. Because these geometric files are all at Z0, I can use my home analyze entity function and get the length of each of these pins. There's 4.5 inches, 4.69. So I can very quickly go through and make a list of the pins and the lengths and diameters and give them either to the guy that I need to manufacture these pins or manufacture them myself later. All of the other functions in model prep still work. So if I needed to increase the size of these rails for whatever reason, I could go model prep, push pull, select this face, grab this, and I can type in the value I want to increase that by. I'm going to increase it by 3/4 of an inch. There we go. I'm going to do the second rail as well. And just like that, it's ready to go. All right. I'm going to open up another model. We've got several different models we're going to work through. With this particular model, you guys may have recognized it from the stock model workshop. There was some damage done to this face. However, that damage was done either on the machine, when it was off the machine, someone dropped something on it, and it had to be welded. I need to create a stock model so I can remachine this, just this welded area. Well, to create a stock model and to puff it out, like I'm going to show you how to do, I need to create a surface. And right now, this face is one face. I need to take that face and split it. So split solid faces. It says select the wireframe and face to split. So I'm going to use my quick mask and select that wireframe. And then I'm going to simply click on the face. And you can see that this is now separated. This is a face and this is a face. Again, why is that important? Because now I can come into surfaces and say from solid. I can select just that face. Say end selection. That is now a surface model. And in my tool paths, if I had a machine loaded for my stock model, I could select just that surface, puff it out to represent the welded area, and target my tool path just to that area. It's a very handy function, because what I can do at that point is use the same tool path that I finished this with, just target that area. So at the end of that machining process, because it's essentially the same tool path, you virtually won't see any blend here. So here's a fairly simple model that I have to machine. I've got some flats I got to machine, some holes I got to machine. No idea what angle these holes are at. I didn't draw this, I just opened it. But I need to create a tool axis or a tool plane to drill or machine those holes in. And if you've ever tried doing that manually, it can be done, but there's a lot to it. On my model prep tab, I have a feature called hole axis. And I can simply select that, select the face of that hole, and it does three things. It creates a line, it creates point or points, and it creates a circle or circles. In this particular case, the only thing that I'm looking for is this axis line. So I can turn the points off and the circle off. So what I've done is created an axis line that runs parallel with this hole down the center. So I can say okay to that. Go into my planes, say planes, create from entity normal, select the end of that line, position it so my Z is correct, and I'm off to the races. I've now created a tool plane that will enable me to put this hole in. And in this case, it enables me to put this hole in as well, but not this one. So I have to do the same thing. And again, it couldn't be any simpler. Hole axis, select the face. It creates the circles, the points, and the lines. And I don't have to delete the circles. Sometimes it will come in handy if I wanted to use that circle to chamfer a hole. In this particular case, that wouldn't work, but over here it might. So I can keep those there. In this case, I'm just going to say I don't want them. Turn them off. Say OK. Again, from entity normal, select the end of my line, rotate it around till my Z is pointing in the right direction. We're good to go. Now, I don't care about the X and the Y because this is on a 5-axis machine and my WCS is still going to be top. I'm just using this as a tool plane, and because I'm only concerned with the tool plane, the Z is all that matters. If I had to set this up on a 3-axis mill and this had to be my pickup, then something like that, if I had it kicked up on a vise, then the X and the Y would matter. Moving on. This is a solid model. Again, model prep only works on solid models. Mold Plus for surface models, model prep for solid models. But I'm going to activate, model prep, and I'm going to go to modify feature. Part of modify feature is I can create or remove and create. In this particular case, I want to remove these features, not because they don't have to be done, but because they're already done. And when I cut the top, I don't want my cutter to roll down inside of them. I want to basically avoid them. So all I have to do is select them. If I select just these features, and if I miss this little feature here on the end, and I say remove, hit the check plus, it rebuilds this feature, and I just need to select it and say go away. I can do the same thing over here. Select all of my features. And then I'm going to do the same thing for this feature. Just like that, they're gone. So now when I machine this top face, my cutter is actually going to go beyond that, so it's not going to leave any witness. I'm not going to dig in if for whatever reason, if God forbid this pickup was wrong by 100 thousandths. Yes, this is going to be incorrect, but at least I didn't damage that size. One of the other things while we're here are these holes. Showed you how we can eliminate some of these holes by selecting add history, remove, select the holes, and that tries to remove all of the holes. Well, if I don't want to remove all of them, say I just want to remove this ledge here, I can use move, double click on the features, because that's what these holes are. By double clicking, it selects all aspects of that feature. Once they're all selected, I can click on this axis and simply drag my mouse, and they disappear. Now, move allows me to do just that. I can leave them where they're at, but if I wanted to adjust the placement by 1/8 of an inch, I can do that. But in this case, I want them to go away, so I drag, hit the green check mark, and they're gone. Once again, those holes are now gone. And then I'm going to use add history to get rid of the rest of these. So I'm going to say remove features, make sure holes selected, hit the green check mark. Again, it tells me what it did. Notice some of these features didn't get manipulated. That's because this feature, all of the different faces that it crosses. And model prep doesn't have the brain power or the horsepower to delete those. So it just doesn't. That's where Mold Plus comes in. And with simple 2-3 clicks, I can cover these holes. And now I've got a clean face here that I can machine without any issues. Okay. One more model to take a look at. So this was a solid part file that I opened up. And when I opened it up, you can see where it lives relative to Mastercam's top world plane. Like a lot of models that you guys probably deal with, it's not relative to where I need it to machine currently in Mastercam. There's several different ways that we can manage this. So if I get a closer look at this, to me, this looks like a turning part. This looks like something that I would put on a lathe and turn all of this. So without manipulating the geometry, I can turn on my model prep tab and select align to Z. What this does is it aligns this solid body to Z by creating a custom WCS relative to the geometry wherever I select it. In this particular case, I'm going to select the end. And you can see it's aligned this geometry now to a Z plane. It's called custom WCS. If the Z is going in the wrong direction, we can reverse it. But in this case, I'm just going to say green check mark. And again, this is for a turning operation. So the Z on a lathe, when we set it up, the top view is looking down on your part. The actual Z on a lathe is going to go this way, but inside of Mastercam, this is the top view. Just like that. I didn't have to manipulate the geometry. It still lives where it lives relative to the top, but I've created this new WCS. Bring this part in again. That exact same function. Instead of creating this custom WCS, I can transform to a plane. So I can say transform my geometry to the top. Select that same place on my geometry. It temporarily aligns it. I'm going to say go ahead and do that. Now when I go to a top view and fit it, what this has done is it hasn't created any custom plane. It's taken my geometry and moved it so it's now relative to the world top in Mastercam. And I can move forward just like if I had imported this and it lived where I needed it to be. Is there a difference? The difference is if I have any engineering change to this that comes back either from the customer or from my CAD department, that engineering change is going to live when I open it out here in space. So if I move this geometry to here and I need to use this new geometry, I'm going to have to move the new geometry, recalculate all my toolpaths. If I created the custom WCS where this lives, I wouldn't have to do anything other than import the new geometry, create or select the new geometry that I had to machine if that needed to happen, and I wouldn't have to manipulate where this lives. Align to plane. There's that face. I get this grayed out gnomon. Notice it's asking me to select a line or a solid edge. What I'm doing now is creating a Z-axis or a vector that my Z-axis is going to follow. So I'm going to select that edge and the bottom edge. Creates a bounding box. It puts my origin on the outside of that bounding box. I can come over here and say, no, I want it in the center. And hit the green check mark. What this does is it creates a WCS that I can run on a mill now instead of a lathe. Try that one more time. There we go, there we go. Green check mark. And now I have a plane that I can pick this up and put it on my mill. Yeah, if this is a candle holder, maybe I had to hollow out where the candle goes on the mill. I couldn't do that on my lathe for whatever reason. And then one last function I want to show you is pretty much the same model. So we'll start from scratch. This time, instead of a lathe, this is going to go on to my 5-axis machine. And here is a holding fixture that I have mounted to the table of my UMC 750. And inside of this fixture, there's a secondary fixture, which is basically a plate that I'm going to fix this part to. But you can see they're not where they need to be. This is orientated, so the the pickup on my machine is the center bottom of this. I need to take this part and make it live down here. One of the things I can do is say align to face. It says select the face or solid to be moved. I'm going to come over to my solid and just select this bottom face. I get a genome that I can rotate. I can manipulate back and forth. So if I didn't want it in the center, when you select the face, it automatically defaults to the center. So in this case, I like where that lives. I'm just going to say enter. It says select a fat help if I could talk. It's late in the afternoon. A flat face as the destination. So I'm going to come down, and all I have to do is select this face. Again, it puts it in the center. If I don't want it in the center, I can move it. But that is where I want it. That's where this lives. Green check mark, and now I'm ready to machine. If I go to a front view, there's my pickup on my machine. This is in the vise, ready to go. So again, there's other ways that could happen, but with the model prep tab, it's really simple. 2 clicks, and I can take that solid and align it and put it where I want. So take some time, go through all of this functionality. I covered most everything. There's some functionality in here that I didn't. So when you come in here and you do some research, if you find that you have some questions, please don't hesitate to give me a holler. I hope you enjoyed it and learned something.